Hello, welcome to yet another destroyer inspection in World of Warships. And we are looking at the brand new baguette, the Cassard. How does the Cassard differ from the Marceau and the Kleber? Uh, Number one, you are slow as fuck. You get a slightly different speed boost. You get a kind of 90 up, 90 down, 30% speed boost that basically, when active, gives you the same base speed as Marceau and Kleber. So you are incredibly slow. You basically have exactly 3/4 the DPM of Marceau because you just basically lose a turret. You have worse AA than Marceau, obviously better than Club. You do actually get slightly improved shells in every way over Marceau. They are less floaty by a little bit. The HE does slightly more damage, and the AP has a bit more pen, actually, like a noticeable amount more pen. 10, 15 millimeters more pen at most ranges. And then, of course, you do have the 6.1 kilometer concealment, and you have the same torpedo layout, two sets of three per side, but they go 13.5 kilometers, and they theoretically can hit for 24K. Uh, Basically, beyond a certain range, I believe it's 7 kilometers, the torpedo damage drops off and starts precipitously falling. And at max range, very frustratingly, Wargaming just refuses to state anywhere what the maximum torpedo damage can be at maximum range. Because they just love keeping secrets from the community and making the game harder to learn, harder to play. We love it, we love it, we love it. But if I had to guess, I would say these torps do about half damage at max range. Just kind of based on the kind of hits that I get, these 7 to 9K hits on something like a Montana at 13 kilometers. I'm fairly comfortable saying it's somewhere between like 11 and 14,000 damage at max range. Still okay, but obviously nothing close to what the base is. Now, you do also have a very strange turret layout. You have 2 in the back, 1 in the front, and a very logical comparison for me is going to be the Hayate. The Hayate has the same turret layout, the same concealment, but the Hayate has way better torps. It just kind of does. Also has more DPM. So I guess the question for me is, if I could be playing a hybrid with the same concealment, better guns, better torps, and a smoke screen, does that justify having French saturation and better speed boost? It doesn't to me. I'm just not really a fan of this ship. I think it's fine. I think it's actually fairly well balanced, kind of. I think it's not really very good at anything. Fighting destroyers, it's like way worse than Marceau and Kleber. Even rushing, I think you can make a very strong argument that Kleber is still better at rushing people out than this thing, which is very counterintuitive. Now, the torps are, in theory, quite nice, right? You have 13.5 kilometer torps. You get 12 torps on a 2-minute base reload. They hit for a max of 24K. Even at medium raise, they're still hitting for, like, basically, like, gearing damage, right? And they're pretty fast. The problem is they don't really hit anything. Why don't they really hit anything? Well, they have about the same reaction time as gearing torps, but gearing torps tend to get lots of hits. So why do I say these don't get any hits? Well, the problem is you have to spin your ship to shoot the torps. That is the problem. You are not able to send out 12 torpedoes at a time. You send out 6 torpedoes, and you then turn your whole ship, and you send out another 6. Obviously, there are multiple issues with this torpedo situation. Number one, the rate of the torps being shot. Basically, it's kind of like how in the Harugamo you launch torps, right? You launch torps, and like 6, 7, 8 seconds later, I can't remember exactly how long, you launch another set. Here you see the French saturation doing its, wonderful bullshit of letting that Shima torp do half damage to me. Very cool. So that's kind of the problem, is enemies really just have to dodge 6 torps at a time. There's no real way to send out the wall of skill. And when you just need a hit or two on a battleship, on a cruiser, what you need is the wall of skill. And the Cassard just does not have the wall of skill. That is, to me, basically the fundamental problem with this ship as a torpedo boat. I do think building for the torps is pure bait. Absolute, unadulterated pure bait. So also, in addition to not having that wall of skill, that 10 to 15 torp wall that every other, even the 8 torps that some torpedo boats have, the other problem is because you have to turn your ship, it interferes with your game plan. This is a problem because your guns are very decent. You do get most of your damage. In my experience, you get almost all of your damage through the guns on this thing. I would say well over half, like comfortably well over half. There's games where you hit no torps. In fact, I'm going to look at it at the end of this video, but my torpedo hit ratio in this thing is lower than like almost any gunboat I have. Now, I am a self-admitted, not really big fan of torpedo boats. It's not a playstyle I typically enjoy too much. But, yeah, the problem is, like, so in this situation, let's say I want to torp this Izumo. Well, I can back up and I can shoot 6 torpedoes at him. But what if I want to use the other half of my torps? Well, I have to completely give up on farming him. I have to put myself in a horrible dogshit situation. And I have to turn the boat and get the other set of torps off. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, in this situation, the idea that you have this torpedo DPM, and on paper you have incredibly high torpedo DPM, like it's basically on par with Shimakaze torpedo DPM. In reality, that torpedo DPM is just a lie. Because number one, the damage drop off. If you're outside of 7 kilometers, and even at medium range, like 9, 10 kilometers, realistically your torpedo DPM is cut by like 30-40% because of the damage fall off on this torp damage. But then more importantly, like, the majority of the game you can't spin to win. Like, the majority of the game in the Cassard, you can't afford to give up like, in this situation, like, me giving up farming this Izumo would be, like, clinically deranged behavior. Because, like, why would I give up farming him to stern torp him, right? Like, that would make obviously no fucking sense. My GK makes a hilarious play here by beaching, which, I mean, is really good for me because now I can just literally stay parked here and the Shima can't torp me. So the game is not going well. Quite obviously, the game is not going well at all. And yeah, it's very problematic. So basically, if you watch my Hayate review, I said you should build it for torps because the torps are like basically as good as Shima torps if you build for them. I think the exact opposite is true of the Cassard. I think these torpedoes are so unreliable at anything beyond point blank range that it's pure cope and bait to build into them at all. But also the problem is, even building fully for guns, you have the same problem that Hayate has. And that is, you shit on torpedo boats, but you don't really kill anything else. That is fundamentally the issue. And most of that is not even down to your DPM, because the DPM is fine. It's very okay. It's the speed. I mean, remember, you are in a hull the size of Marceau with, in best case scenario, 10 less knot speed. And most of the time, if we're being honest, 20 knots less speed than Marceau. So there you see us hitting a nice cluster of torpedoes across the map. Insane that he hit those, like legitimately insane. So that is nice, right? That is undeniably an advantage that this thing has over Kleber and Marceau. Really, the two advantages are the concealment and the torpedo range. Um, Now, I mentioned that Kleber is actually, in my mind, just better at rushing people, which sounds crazy because you theoretically have the same torpedoes in Cassard, right? They have like virtually identical reaction time to Kleber torps, and then they just hit harder. So if you're YOLOing people and you're actually getting max damage on the torps, then why would I say that Kleber is better at rushing? The speed. That's it. You're just too slow in this thing. And the problem is when you YOLO people, unless they are lobotomized, retarded fucking bots, what ends up happening is you run around a rock on them, and in the Kleb, because you go 55 plus knots, you rapidly outturn their guns, get on their side, and hit all 6 torpedoes. Unless they have God tier torpedo protection belt, you average like 11 to 13,000 a torpedo. You have real world like a 60 to 70k alpha strike on the Kleber torps, and you one shot basically anything that's not like a super healthy Kremlin, Yamato, something like that, right? Then in the Cassard, what happens is you're too slow to get on their side. You're just too slow, and if they have their guns aimed, you're really easy to hit. You can't outturn their turrets, and you're going to get hit, and you're probably going to die unless you started the YOLO at full HP. So what happens? Well, unfortunately what happens is you basically have to shoot the torps at their nose. And then what do? You get damage saturation hits, and you hit fewer torps because they're bow in, you miss 1 or 2 torpedoes, and you average the same or less damage as Kleber would. That's the problem. That is the fucking problem with YOLOing in the Cassard, is it only really works against completely retarded bots. Here you see there, though, a very good example of what I mean by against torpedo boats, you shit on them, because you have decent enough DPM. Obviously, I have more DPM than Shima and Jaeger combined. And then I have the French saturation to keep me alive, right? So I'm able to get both of those kills. Now, in fairness, something like Hayate, which we've compared this to, would have died quite a while ago, because it doesn't have this bullshit French saturation going for it, right? Like that Jaeger torp did, what was that, like 3,000 damage to me, all of that incoming fire, right? So we're still in a very precarious situation in this game. I have a Cure Sarge and I have an Immelman on my team, and they are both just 100% allergic to spotting anything ever, which is quite problematic. And they're also apparently very bad at just getting kills, because the enemy team has this Musashi that's on like no HP, and he's somehow still alive. So the problem here now is my speed boost is down. I'm going 35-ish knots, right? Shima, no Swift and Silence build, no speed boost, is going like 5 knots faster than me. And he has RPF. So all this guy has to do is just run at me. And I'm on low enough HP that I can't gun him. And I also cannot really outrun him. Like, you see my concealment goes out to the middle of the cap, and he's been on the cap for 20 seconds. Like, if this guy just sprinted at me, if he just had a speed boost ready and sprinted at me, he would catch me and kill me. And because you have like this really good concealment, and you have these really hard-hitting torps at close range, you're in theory incentivized in the Cassard to relocate constantly to get angles on people at close range to do big damage with the torpedoes. But then you don't have the speed, this guy could have just ran me down. Giant misplay by him, probably ended up losing his team the game by not chasing me. It's still not looking great, though. Our Cure Sarge is going to die, right? And if our Cure Sarge dies, even if we kill the Montana, you see the time. Basically, we need to triple cap them, but then we also need the Shima to die or knock in on the cap that I'm currently on, right? So we're zooming around the map now at 46 knots, and it's just like, here's my problem with the Cassard. If I'm gunning anything, destroyers, cruisers, battleships, I'd rather be in the Marceau or the Kleb. If I am playing utility pig like this, sailing around the map, getting the caps, I'd rather be in any of the other French destroyers. If I am in a YOLO situation, I would just rather be in the Kleber because I go way faster and I'm harder to hit. and I'm gonna hit every single torp in a Yolo because I have the speed to get the drive-by angles, right? So kind of like the only situation where I would rather be in the Cassard instead of Marceau or Kleb is super low HP on an open flank with battleships and cruisers only pushing me? Is that it? It's kind of it, man. Um, and like you don't even really suffer less against CVs than the Kleb because like yes, you have better AA. The Kleb AA is like a thing of fucking just it's horrific. But you're also like 55 knots for 4 minutes at a time in the Kleb, so you're way harder to fuck with by CVs. Like you're in your CV dropping torps on a 36 knot Marceau. Like, is that thing hard to hit? No, it's not fucking hard to hit, right? Um, so this is kind of like the issues I have is I could be in a boat with decent torps that like I'm just gonna tell you straight up, like at longer range, this is my go-to comparison because they're very mid torps. I'd rather spam Alvaro de Bazan or Regolo torps at 12 kilometers than spam these. I'm way more likely to get a hit with those because of the stealth. Um, they're centerline torps, so I actually have basically the same alpha strike as these torps. Like we've said, the alpha strike is you're limited to one side. Your torpedo DPM is pure bait. On paper, it's Shimakaze torpedo DPM. You instantly have to really remove about 30% of that due to the damage fall off. And then you instantly have to remove like another half because unless you want to wiggle around, and you see how like little speed I have, like I'm wiggling around at 34 knots just to torp this guy, and I'm probably not going to hit one because he just has to dodge it's like dodging single racks of gearing torps. That's what it's like. Single racks of Holland torps, maybe, because the spread is tighter. Like, if a Holland is torping you one rack and then 8 to 10 seconds later torping you with another rack, like, are you threatened by this? No, you're not. And then again, you have to like change what you're trying to do. Um, so this game is basically a win if Shima doesn't cap C or if we kill Shima. Um, so all my CV has to do is he just has to like hover on this guy. I can abuse the islands, the floatier shell arcs, right? I can pretty easily kill this guy. I'm opening up here even though I'm spotting because his guns aren't already on me. And it should be a pretty, free win unless he is a very, very, very god tier blind fire. But because of my HP and the French saturation, he's realistically going to have to hit like probably 4 plus, probably 4, maybe even 5 shells on me to kill me. So even if he was pretty good at blind firing, there's not a lot of risk in doing this. And he just kind of has to die because, my CD apparently can't hit him with skip bombs. So yeah, interesting that as soon as the CV actually did something useful, we guarantee win the game instead of it being a super sketch up in the air situation. And then I'm obviously just missing an enormous amount on this guy, but we're gonna get the win because the CV finally just did what I've been asking him to do, which is just keep the Shima spotted. So we win, but the problem is trying to get your damage through torps is super, super sweaty because you just spam torp after torp after torp after torp after torp after torp after torp to get 1 or 2 hits. Getting your damage through the guns is super sweaty because you have, a little bit better, but basically Marceau guns, but 3/4 the DPM. You can't just sit open water against people because even with the speed boost up, like again, with the speed boost up, your Marceau with speed boost down, man. It's horrible. It's horrible. Like the shell juking in this thing is horrible. Um, and then YOLO torping, like you're definitely better than Marceau because of the alpha on the torps, but like I think you're just kind of inarguably worse at YOLOing than just regular gun spec Kleb because you don't have the speed. You don't have the speed. There's too many situations where you're just forced to shoot torps at noses and sterns. And that, like, you just have to settle for that. You just have to settle for, oh, this guy's definitely going to reload because I'm too slow to outturn his guns or I'm too slow to even just get from 3 kilometers off his nose to out of his side enough to guarantee I hit all 6 torps. So I have to launch early to get the torps off before I die. You hit 4 torps instead of Kleber's 6, so you're already gimped on damage, and then you're hitting nose, so you like instantly saturate, and you average less damage than Kleb torps would average against like ships with even okay torpedo protection, right? Uh, yeah, that is my problem. I think it's balanced. We'll hop into a second replay. I do think it's balanced, but to me, like there's just nothing here that's enticing, really, personally to me. I mean, like obviously, like we had good game impact, but like you've seen this replay. Like, did I get good in game impact because I like bullied people in the Cassard, or did I get good at game impact because like multiple destroyers like just suicide, like Jaeger Shima just suicided into me when they had a guaranteed free win and all they had to do was run away? Like, very good game impact, like just doing about 12,000 damage to 3 different destroyers, right? But like in the same situation, because these people were idiots, like I would have killed them way faster in Marceau. I would have farmed down that Izumo way faster in Marceau. I would have done all of this like the only, like truly the only thing that I couldn't have done in Marceau is get the 27,000. But you see the damage? Like this was max range, right? Against Colombo, 27k. So we averaged 9k a torp hit. Like, it's nice. We got 27k torp damage across the map. Pretty cool. But like, this would have just been a higher damage, higher base XP, more comfortable win in the Marceau. That's the problem I have with this. And with all of that said, you may be looking at your monitor, shaking your head, and saying, well, this fucking guy is playing the ship wrong. Doesn't he know that, yeah, obviously it's worse than Marceau. It's supposed to be built for torps. Fair. Here's the problem. Like I've said multiple times, you don't really fucking hit torps in this thing. This is the problem, is this isn't like, even a gearing or like a YY gun spec where like you send out a wall of skill. It's just pure bait. Like if I'm in a position to farm, right? Like you saw in that last replay, that Izumo. Like I mentioned, if I'm currently farming 1,000 damage every 2.5, 3 seconds on somebody, in what fucking universe would I stop farming the like equivalent of 30k damage per minute to turn my ship 180 and launch torps that might not even hit somebody? Like, this is the problem. If these torps, and listen, this is why, again, I think it's balanced. Like, I think this ship would probably be overtuned if you could magically centerline these torps, right? But if you could centerline the torpedoes, then they would be very good. If you had 4 sets of 3, right, like Jaeger has 4 sets of 3, and they could all be shot off the same side of the ship. If you could do that in the Cassard, it would 100% be worth building for torpedoes, because you would have what we call the wall of skill. 12 torpedoes coming at somebody all at the same, basically at the same time. Very slight delay, obviously. But basically you would be able to send out a wall of skill. And because you can't, also, the angles disappear. Like, so this Petro, for example, if I keep pushing, right, I pre-launched these torps, but let's say I had kept pushing, if you look at the mini-map, and I had a torpedo angle on him with my left side torp. So I'm here where my cursor is, and I have torp angles on him. Well, in order to shoot the right side torps, I would then have to turn back this way. And then I don't have the angle. This is another problem, like with having to spin to launch the torpedoes. Is like I said, pure open water on people pushing your flank, then yes, you get to spin to win. But real world game situations, you just, it's not worth it, right? It's just not worth taking time out of your day. Again, that's a perfect example. Like, if I was in something like gearing and I had been able to shoot 10 torpedoes at that guy's smoke, almost guaranteed he would hit one. Shima 15 torps, almost guaranteed he would hit one, right? Even Brigolo, something like that, 8 very stealthy torps, pretty guaranteed he would hit one. The speed's good, the reaction time is just okay. Here, I would be, if I was in a Marceau, I would juke that entire Colombo salvo. I would be on full HP still. Um, I would have basically killed this Holland right fucking now with Marceau DPM. Um, and this is the problem. I understand that ships, again, I'm going to repeat myself. I think it's reasonably well balanced. I think that the ship isn't overpowered, which I enjoy. I do like that it's not overpowered. But there are many ships that I do not consider overpowered that have interesting gimmicks. Like, I don't think Alvaro de Bazan is overpowered, or that Rigolo is Rigolo. Yeah, it's maybe okay. It's maybe not overpowered. It's pretty strong though. But they have interesting problems to solve, and to me, their gimmick is interesting. To me, there's nothing interesting about Cassard's ultimate gimmick, which is like Shima torp damage on Kleber Marceau torpedo layout at close range. Now, if you had the speed of Marceau, right? If this ship went 45 knots and then it went 55 knots with the speed boost up, all of a sudden I would probably like drastically change my tune on this ship. I don't know what this fucking Holland is doing. I mean, like, again, is this me? Is this the Cassard being good at killing destroyers? Like, keep in mind, Holland is the same DPM as this thing. He just, like, doesn't shoot me? Like, what? And then the Fletcher is shooting me? Hello? So I hit 4 torpedoes on the Colombo. Very cool. Now, speaking of torpedoes, something I did forget to mention. Okay, something worth mentioning. The flood chance on the Cassard torpedoes is retarded. I actually think it's the highest flood chance of any tier 10 destroyer torpedo in the game. You have a 415, 16, 17% base flood chance. So that means that if you take just the flag, right, there's 0 value to liquidator on your captain. All you have to do is take the flag that increases flood chance by, I believe it's 15%. That will give you, like a 480% flood chance, which is basically at the realm of guaranteed floods, even on like Satsuma torpedo belt. So, but here's the thing: you don't really hit torps on these people. Like, it's such a strange, and this is very unfortunate. Look at the torpedo reload I have. Like, this Colombo is probably the stupidest player in the history of Colombo players. Just literally no one is at the helm. There is no one in the hamster wheel. But that is, we're trying to show like a couple of quick replays. I'm not going to show the whole thing because these are short replays, but they're going to kind of stress like the issues with the ship here. So let's hop straight into this next one. Okay, starting this replay, we're just going to show about 3 or 4 minutes of it. As always, remember these are back-to-back games, so 3 games in a row. We had a pretty good first game. Second game, we had, pretty good game impact, but basically just undeniably would have been way, 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 way better off in Kleb, or also in Kleb, my torps would have reloaded guaranteed to kill that Colombo. Now, you might say they would have reloaded guaranteed if I took torpedo reload mods. Very true. Very true. But I tend to build ships for the average game, not for the niche games, right? So starting this game off, we hit a blind torp on Harugumo, and now we're on the flank, and so I've got 6 torps I can send out on a cruiser with that probably is Hydra up. It's just, I'm just not into this. I don't think this ship is bad. I mean, theoretically speaking, my performance in it is pretty good. Something like a, I don't know, 65, 70 win rate in about 30 games. I don't value the gimmick it has at all. That's my issue number 1. I don't value this gimmick whatsoever. And this is the problem. I'm sending 2 sets of 3. I'm trying to stagger them, and then torpedo dispersion just says there's going to be gaps, right? And this is the problem, man. This is the problem, right? This is the problem, is anyone with a fucking brain does not hit these fucking torps. And the reason why I want to show the just these few minutes of this game is Yet again, we have another game where if I was in the Kleber, I would have performed way better. Because again, you have to remember, like Kleber has a 77-second base reload on the torps. This thing with a full build has about a 90-second base reload. Kleber torps are also faster than these torps are. So, is this thing replacing the ledge mod Kleb? In my opinion, absolutely not. But you see here now something kind of cool is we can Citadel this guy because we do have improved AP pen compared to something like Marceau. But I want you to think about this situation I'm in. And I want you to imagine you are in a Kleber. You've got your AP loaded. The speed boost is up. It lasts for 4 minutes, which means it's not going to end in 20 seconds. It's going to end in 3 minutes, basically. This guy's dead. Right about, yeah, now he's dead. He's dead right now to Kleber AP. He's probably dead right now to Marceau AP even, because we have 33% more DPM. So, I would still be close to 10,000 HP. My speed boost would still be up, and I would have the same count of torps on this side, and they would do less damage. So, we're going around the rock. We're going for the Yolo. And I have to launch the torps now, because he's going to kill me. What would happen in the Kleber? Well, instead of torping from this angle, if you see my mouse cursor, I would be torping from this angle. And I would hit all 6 torpedoes on him, and he would be dead. And
the enemy team has taken the lead.
Wow. I mean, it doesn't help when that's your Salem player either, let's be real. But that's it. That situation, Kleber is basically even still alive because I would still... that Columbo would have had to hit literally all 8 shells to kill a Kleber in that situation because I would already be on still 10,000 HP. I would be already on his side, and I would hit all 6 torpedoes. You saw there we only hit 3, and because we had to hit his nose, they saturated. They only averaged about 13,000 each. Kleber against Columbo Torpedo Belt is going to also do about 12,000 damage per torp, but it's going to hit all 6, and he's going to be dead, and we're probably still alive, but guaranteed we kill him. He's dead. Salem, I mean, it would be no value to have that Salem alive anyway, but he would still be alive. That's my problem with the ship. There's almost no situation where I want to be in this over a Kleber or Marceau. There's just almost no situation. Honestly, just like bannable gameplay, like literally, if this like bannable gameplay, if this game gave a fuck about the health of games, these players would be banned to co-op for like a minimum of 50 games playing like this. But no, they can just GG go next, battle on. Battle on is to me the worst feature this game has ever implemented because it has made the player base worse. It just has. I love it for grinding a line. I love it for multiple reasons. It's great when you're divisioning and you want to keep playing the same boat, but it's quite unfortunate because the IQ of the player base, the gameplay has declined precipitously since they have introduced Battle On, because if you enjoy a ship, you can now just grief team after team after team after team after team for no penalty. It's a bit of an aside. Detailed report. So on the Columbo, we hit 3 torpedoes for 47,000 damage. So we averaged about, what is that, 16,000 damage a torp. Pretty good, right? Pretty good. Yeah, the problem is we would have hit 6 in the club. That's the problem. So now if that guy is retarded, or, you know, and the thing is, even with the speed boost up in that situation, I still wouldn't be able to get an angle on him to hit all 6. I would probably maybe hope for 4, maybe 5 at most. And that's the thing. Against completely retarded players, in unicorn situations, yes, there is higher rush potential with the Torp Alpha in this thing. But number 1, like I mentioned, you're slower even with the speed boost up. But number 2, because the speed boost lasts for so little time, it's like 115 seconds if you build for it. And because you're slower while it's up, unlike the Kleber has like a 4-minute window, right? I want you to think of it like this. You have a 4-minute speed boost in the Kleb if you take speed boost mod. So you have a 4-minute window to see an opening developing, get to the spot to exploit it, going 55 knots, get in position. The torps are guaranteed reloaded by then because they have like a 77-second reload. And then when you go for the YOLO, your speed boost will always still be up. The torps will always still be loaded. You are so fast, you will either straight up outturn the guns or you will get on their side before they can shoot, and you will guarantee all 6 torpedoes hit. You can't do any of those things in the Cassard. The idea that this is a YOLO rusher, it's like, yeah, against legitimate bots, against actual retarded 40 IQ bots, yes, it can YOLO rush them. I mean, this thing would have just like evaporated to Kleb reload boosted AP. Like, would have instantly evaporated. Would have died faster to Marceau. And either of those situations, I just would have rather been. Honestly, even rushing that Colombo in that situation, I would rather be in 55 knot Marceau with the way less damaged torpedoes because, yeah, the torps only do 60% as much as Cassard torps, but I would have hit 6 instead of 3. So it's still more damage, right? And again, the caveat is how I, like to play ships. I don't like that you have to run away in this thing constantly because the speed boost is down. I don't like that you can't sit open water and farm consistent long durations of time because you don't have the speed boost and you're easy to hit, right? I mean, this thing is like easier to fucking hit than Holland, dude. If the speed boost is down, it's like as easier to hit than the Holland, which is crazy, right? Actually has less DPM than Holland too. If you go gun spec Holland, Holland torps obviously you can't like YOLO rush it all in, but Holland gets more consistent torpedo hits than Cassard, like 100%. And then you also have to keep in mind that while the flood chance is great on this thing, number one, any destroyer torp in tier 10 that hits bow or stern floods, no matter what, no questions asked, because torpedo reduction doesn't apply, belt reduction doesn't apply to nose and ass hits. So like, if you're YOLOing in like if you hit a torp on half of a ship with any other destroyer, you still get a flood. I mean, even Holland will get a flood with 100% of nose hits anyway. So it's like, is the flood chance, like what is the flood chance accomplishing for you? All it's really accomplishing for you is if like you hit a random midship torp at long range, then you're basically guaranteed a flood. That's nice. That's undeniably nice. But that's kind of like the only thing special about the torps at medium long range, really, is you get like guaranteed torp protection floods, which is cool. But then you don't really hit torps at range. At range, you really don't hit torps in this thing. So then my question is like, why am I playing it? Like, why am I playing a shitty Marceau with worse than Kleb torps inside of 8 kilometers overall, and then worse than like any other hybrids torps in the 9 to 13 kilometer range? Why am I doing that? I don't know. I'm not. That's the answer. Is I'm not. Like I don't see any reason to grind this line. It's not doing anything. Like you're not missing any experience in the Cassard at all. And like we've compared this to Ledgemont Kleb because you have like similar concealment and the torps are kind of, about the same, right? They hit a little harder, but they're a little slower if you go full torp spec than on Ledgemont Kleb. But like Ledgemont Kleb has like you can get the torp reload down to 60 seconds. So like if the idea is that you're spamming torps at the range where they do max damage, like people pushing you inside of 8 kilometers, then like Ledge Club is still better because it has like, 60% more torp DPM. But then like if you're rushing, the Ledge Club is still better because the speed boost is always on going 55 knots and the torps are always ready. So you get more torps. So it totally counteracts the alpha strike of these torps at close range. And then if you want to like spam torps at long range, you have to change the play style. Like you're farming with your stern towards the left, and now you have to like lose farming to turn the boat to spam like the equivalent of one set of gearing torps at people that they're probably never going to hit anyway. So it's not even really worth spinning to win in this thing at range anyway. And then you could literally just be like spamming again. We're going to use Rigolo torps as an example that have like better like less reaction time, do the same damage at long range that these do. I don't know. It's a totally fine ship, totally fine, very balanced. Good job, Wargaming. Honestly, no sarcasm. Like good job, Wargaming. I feel like the ship is balanced. The only thing I despise about it is that I think it's a toxic 1-for-1 experience. Like the worst player in the game can run around on your battleship and like guarantee you lose like 40,000 HP. Like that can be toxic, but like I don't know. At the end of the day, like this thing torping you at range is not a threat. This thing spamming you at range is not that big of a deal either. There's like so many even hybrids that have better uh, guns than this thing. And then it's just like in an awkward spot because you really want to build fully for guns because the torps aren't that good, but like you're starting off with a lower base DPM than Holland has, so you get less impact out of the guns, less fire starting. Yeah, let's hop back in the port. Okay, equipment. I don't think there's anything you would ever want to change here, but you would definitely grab engine boost mod. It's pretty crucial. You only have 7.5 minutes of speed boost, and they're just not up for a long time. Like that last little mini replay we showed, the speed boost would have been up for one last Yolo rush. Like I said, probably wouldn't have changed the outcome a whole lot, but it is undeniable that having these up for an extra 30 seconds is quite nice. Like I said, with the flood chance flag, it's 15%. You have like a 415% base flood chance. So you're almost at a 500% flood chance, which is like the basically guaranteed floods on torp protection belts, even on crazy ships like Yami and Satsuma. Captain spec, I think it's a full gun spec pretty much no matter what. I wouldn't take AFT because unlike Marceau, you do get better base range. 12.6, it's like right on the edge of where you can even fuck with things like Schlieffen. Um, so I think a very viable thing to do would be you could grab fill the tubes here. Like again, there's no value to liquidator on this thing. A lot of these things have like basically no value at all. You could even get 10 extra seconds on speed boost, but I think this is like my DD hunting Marceau build. I would never build this thing fully for torps, but I would just swap this basically. Just grab this right here, fill the tubes. Is probably better than like 0.2 seconds off the reload, probably. Or Swift and Silence. I think Swift and Silence is an interesting concept on this ship. If you want to go torp spec, like you're sold on Cassard as a torpedo boat, I think that's equally as dumb personally as Holland as a torpedo boat, but let's say you're sold. This will give you a very like comfortable amount of speed, right? So basically the idea would be you like swap this around, but the thing is like even if you want to build fully for torps, that's still hard to justify because like you would have basically two things to work with. Um, but basically, like, yeah, you could then swap Fearless Brawler for Swift and Silence, and then that extra 8% speed is giving you like around 40 knots when your speed boost is down, which is definitely more comfortable to play around. And then you could grab like Torpedo Reload, right? I just have no desire to try to play this thing for torps. I've mentioned all the reasons why I think it's shit. Um, the torps are like just a nice thing to have. They're just like you're just in you're in Marceau at home with better torps. That's what you're in. Mom, we have Marceau at home. Look, it's the Cassard, and then the torps are better. That's this ship to me. There's nothing special about the armor. It's basically just like a Marceau hull. If we can find our Marceau or a Kleb hull, I guess they're basically identical, slightly different. Where's my Marceau? There it is. Yeah, basically a Marceau Kleb hull, fairly identical. You just have a lot less survivability. You have a lot less. You have a lot worse open water farm. You have, in my opinion, again, less ability to YOLO than even in Kleb. Um, and then the torps go farther. To me, not a ship that I would recommend grinding. Again, repeating myself as always, I don't think there's any interesting game experience to miss out on by not having this ship. With that said, I do appreciate that Wargaming made a ship that, for me, my playstyle is more of a dud rather than just a bananas overpowered ship, because we know Wargaming, especially Gunboat, like they've already power crept Marceau in some ways, right? Like I mentioned, the shells are faster, the AP is more pen, and the HE does like 50 damage more per shell hit for literally no reason. Like there's absolutely no reason it does that. So like I'm sure Wargaming was very tempted to just clone Marceau and like keep the speed and keep the torps, and then I think it would be like kind of stupid if this thing just had Marceau DPM with better shell arcs, better torps, and was slower. Then it would be like very questionable. So I'm glad. Good job, Wargaming. You made a fairly balanced destroyer. That will do it for the Cassard. I am not going to look at the Harugumo just yet because I am waiting for the Research Bureau reset to happen, and then I will look at it. So I think we're going to start looking at some battleships in the meantime, and then when that reset happens, then I'll, because what I do is I research like the tier 8 and then play through 8, 9, and 10. So then we'll look at the Harugumo, but I need my research points. Yeah, that'll do it for the Cassard. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.